I was mid-bite into a peanut butter sandwich when I heard boots on tile. Not footsteps, boots. Heavy, uninvited, and headed straight through my front door like it wasn't even locked. The next sound was worse. My daughter's scream. I dropped the sandwich, grabbed the closest thing within arm's reach, a wrench, and charged down the hall. What I saw made me freeze for a split second. Two guys in tactical vests marked HOA patrol were inside my house, barking orders like they were conducting a drug raid. One of them kicked over our coffee table. The other had his hand on his taser, demanding to inspect our smoke detectors. My daughter was cowering in the corner. These weren't inspectors, they weren't police. And they had just broken into a house that belonged to a man who spent 14 years protecting VIPs from international threats. I'm 6'6", 280, trained in hand-to-hand combat, and professionally paid to stare danger in the face until it backs down. And this was about to become a teaching moment. Who the hell do you send when the HOA sends armed intruders to a bodyguard's house? 2 months before the chaos, before the badge-swinging wannabes kicked down my door and triggered the worst mistake of their lives, our neighborhood still had the illusion of peace. The HOA newsletter had always been annoying, sure, passive-aggressive notes about trash cans and acceptable shrub height, but we learned to laugh it off. That changed the day the first HOA patrol truck rolled into the subdivision. Black decals, a fake gold seal that looked like it came off a clip art website, and two guys in matching polos and cargo pants who stepped out like they were about to breach Fallujah. They didn't say hello. They didn't ask permission. They started measuring my neighbor's grass with a laser distance meter like they were calculating the arc of a sniper shot. I watched from my porch, coffee in hand, the same way I'd watched unstable people post up on red carpets and stalkers try to reach clients behind security barricades. That look in their eyes? The one that says they're just looking for a reason? Yeah, they had it. These weren't volunteers. These were men pretending to be authority, guys who never made the cut for real law enforcement but still bought the boots. One of them, lean, pale, and twitchy, glanced at me like I was the next target and scribbled something into a little black book. I didn't blink, just kept sipping. 3 days later, my mailbox got tagged with a violation notice. Potential rust accumulation on fasteners. Rust. On screws. That was the start of the drip torture. Every few days, a new ticket. Grass height exceeds optimal blade length. Receptacle placement, non-compliant. Flagpole angle suggests aggressive political posturing. That last one made my blood boil. It was an American flag on a 10-foot pole. Not a threat, a statement. But apparently, according to the HOA visual tranquility standards, it was too assertive. That same week, my daughter came home in tears. 17. Smart as hell. Quiet. She's been through more than she should have. Her mom walked out when she was 12, and she's had me ever since, trying to be both anchor and sail. That day, she got stopped on our own front porch by one of the new patrol agents. Said she was violating community curfew expectations. Expectation, not rule, not law, not ordinance. But this guy, short, round, beard dyed jet black, clipboard in one hand and a taser in the other, told her she couldn't be outside past 9 p.m. on weeknights. It was 9/7. She was FaceTiming her cousin, sitting on our steps, headphones in, hoodie on. She said he stood there and watched her like she was trespassing on her own life. The next morning, we got a 75 citation titled Minor Unattended. I nearly crushed the coffee mug in my hand. I marched down to the HOA office, ready to raise hell. But what I found was even worse than I imagined. A converted condo, gray carpet, stale air, and at the front desk, Cheryl. Platinum hair, red lipstick that looked shellacked on, and a smile so artificial it made my teeth itch. She didn't blink when I demanded to know why my daughter had been targeted. "Sir," she said in a tone used for toddlers and drunks, "our security volunteers operate within full HOA rights. If your family members are violating community tone or curfew alignment, it's our duty to ensure compliance." I stared at her. Community tone? "Certain behaviors," she said, tapping on her fake iPad screen, "can create unease." She said it like my daughter's existence was a threat to her ambiance. That's when I knew this wasn't about rules. This was about control. These people had stopped being neighbors and started being enforcers. I filed a formal complaint. She printed a copy and handed it to me with a fake smile, then dropped the original in the trash right in front of me. The next week, a new patrol agent showed up. This one was bigger, ex-wrestler build, neck tattoo that peeked out from his collar. He walked up my driveway and started photographing our roofline. No introduction, no reason. Just snapping pictures and mumbling about potential satellite dish violations. We don't even have a dish. I stepped outside and said calmly, "You're on private property." He didn't stop, just grinned. "HOA gives us access rights for inspection." "You have a warrant?" I asked. He stopped smiling. "We don't need one." "You do now," I said, and I didn't move. He backed off, slowly. But not before writing something on his clipboard. That night, I installed 4 security cameras around the house. Motion sensitive, infrared, hardwired, not for the HOA, for me, for proof. Because I'd seen this before, in different uniforms, with different flags, under different excuses, always the same. It starts small, a rule here, a warning there. Then it becomes presence, then pressure, then panic. The next violation came via certified mail. Overgrown vegetation proximity to curb. I walked out front and stared at the leaf in question. 1. Single. Leaf. From the magnolia tree. Barely touching the sidewalk. I laughed. Then, I got real quiet. I started knocking on doors. Neighbor to neighbor. Soft-spoken retirees. Young couples. Nurses. Teachers. The silent majority. They were tired. Afraid. Several told me they'd already paid hundreds in fines just to stop the notices. One family said their 3-year-old's playhouse got flagged as an unauthorized secondary structure. Another man, veteran, retired, said he stopped flying his service flag because Cheryl had called it militant symbolism. My daughter stayed indoors more. She kept asking to ride her bike at dusk, and I kept saying no, not because of crime, because of them. We weren't living in a neighborhood anymore. We were surviving in occupied territory. One night I found her sitting in her room holding a rolled-up letter. It was the curfew citation. She looked up and said, "They said if I'm seen after dark again, we could be fined more. Can they do that?" I couldn't answer. I just stared at the paper. Printed in Comic Sans. Signed with a fake badge number. That was the moment something shifted in me. Not rage. Not yet. Just clarity. They had crossed the line. And if they were willing to do this to a child on her own steps, how far would they go with a green light and no one stopping them? The patrols increased. Now they were showing up in pairs, radios, matching boots. One even wore mirrored sunglasses at night. They stopped pretending they were neighbors. They were scouts. And my house? It was now marked. I kept documenting everything. Every violation, every incident, every letter. I started building a case, slowly, methodically, like I was preparing for an ambush. Because deep down I knew it wasn't a matter of if they'd escalate. It was only a matter of when. It started with the gate, just a subtle shift. I checked that latch every morning. Old habit from work, sweep the perimeter before breakfast, test every point of entry. That Wednesday, it clicked a little too easily. Someone had opened it. I scanned the yard. Nothing obviously disturbed. No tire marks on the drive. No prints in the soil. But I know tension when it's been touched. The camera feed confirmed it. 2 shadows at 3:17 a.m. Blurred under motion. Blur, but definitely human. They didn't come to talk. Just scouted. Walked the side of the house with flashlights off. Paused by the garage. And slipped out without triggering the secondary sensor. They knew what they were doing, or thought they did. I downloaded the footage, clipped it, labeled it, Prelude. 3 days later, I caught them in real time. I was in the backyard, raking leaves by the oak, when I heard boots on gravel. Not the tentative shuffle of a neighbor, the heavy-footed stomp of men who thought they belonged. I stepped around the shed and found them inside my fence line. Both in full HOA patrol cosplay, black boots, Tactical vests with fake patches, sunglasses despite the overcast, and radios clipped to their belts like props. One of them had a clipboard. The other had something worse. Authority without legitimacy. "Gentlemen," I said calmly, lowering the rake. "You're on private property." Clipboard guy looked up. "We're conducting a setback survey." I kept my tone even. Setback surveys don't happen without a property owner's consent, and they don't happen with your foot on my lawn. The second one stepped forward, a smirk curling under his lip. "Men like you," he said slowly, "always think they own the world. Sometimes supervision helps." I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't move, didn't blink. Just said, "Leave, now." The smirk widened. "Are you threatening HOA enforcement personnel?" "No," I replied, still calm. "I'm telling two uninvited men to get off my land before this becomes a legal matter." That word made him pause. Legal. They backed out, slow, like they expected me to chase them. I didn't. I watched. I documented. Later that night, I filed another complaint. Cheryl sent back a form letter. "All compliance patrols are executed within the rights of the HOA. Your hostility has been noted." That was her pattern. Accuse, escalate, gaslight. Always in that order. The next escalation came fast. I came home from a grocery run the following Tuesday, arms full of bags, and something in the air was wrong. The front door was still locked. The back gate hadn't moved, but the garage, slightly open, just enough to breathe. I dropped the groceries, pulled out my phone, tapped the camera feed. No motion alert. But the side camera feed was live. Someone had disabled the garage sensor. I slid around the corner, phone in one hand, pocket knife in the other. Opened the side door silently. There he was. Not clipboard guy, the other one. The smirker, inside my garage. Looking through my tool chest, hands bare, no gloves, no mask. When he saw me, he didn't flinch. Just said, "You got some real aggressive signage, just documenting." "You broke into my garage," I said. "No visible lock," he lied, gesturing to the auto lift. "HOA said you might be hiding structural violations." I reached for the wall-mounted switch, slammed the garage door shut behind me with a thunderous bang. "You're not leaving until the cops get here." His expression changed. "You can't detain me. I'm an HOA officer." "You're a trespasser." I dialed the police right there, loud speaker on. Gave them my address. Said the words, "Unlawful entry, suspect still on premises." He stood still. When the police arrived, 10 minutes later, he was already seated, hands in his lap, looking like a confused Boy Scout. The officer, badge-reading Hawthorne, stepped in, looked at me, then at him, and his face dropped into a tired frown. "Again?" he muttered. "What do you mean, again?" I asked. Hawthorne sighed. "Sir, this sounds like a civil matter. HOA access issues are usually handled internally." "Internally?" I echoed, disbelief crawling up my spine. "He entered my garage without permission. That's breaking and entering." Hawthorne shrugged. "Was the garage locked?" "The sensor was tripped." He bypassed it. "Then it's a matter of documentation, sir. You'll have to take it up with the HOA's compliance board." He didn't even ask for an ID. He didn't even file a report. Just told me to consider mediation. The smirker left with a wink. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched every camera feed on loop, recalibrated the sensors, added backups, wired 2 pressure pads at the gate, and I wrote everything down, a log, not just for me, for what was coming. I thought that was the peak of it. I was wrong. The next morning, my daughter didn't want to leave for school. Not because of kids, because of them. She said she saw one of the HOA cops standing across from the bus stop, just watching. Not moving, not blinking, just watching. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She just whispered, "They know when you're gone, Dad." That broke something in me. I marched down to the HOA office again. Cheryl greeted me with a smirk like she'd been rehearsing it. "Back so soon?" "One of your goons was in my garage," I said. "You call them enforcement. I call them criminals." She waved it off. If you hadn't been so confrontational, perhaps our team wouldn't feel the need to verify your compliance manually. You're defending a break-in. She leaned in, sweet and venomous. Your tone has been increasingly aggressive. Several of our volunteers have documented threatening behavior. If you keep it up, we'll be forced to seek legal remedies. Are you threatening me? I asked. No, she said. I'm documenting you. I walked out before I threw her fake crystal paperweight through the drywall. That weekend, we stayed in, locked up tight. Saturday passed. Sunday passed. No incident. Then came Monday, 5:14 p.m. I was finishing up a call in the living room when I heard a sound I will never forget. Wood splintering. A crack. A thud. Then boots. Inside. Not outside. Not knocking. Inside. 2 men. Same uniforms. Same damn vests. One had a crowbar in his hand. The other? Taser drawn. I was already moving. 6 steps down the hall, wrench in hand. I didn't yell. Didn't announce. I moved like training taught me. Silent and fast. Caught the first one in the ribs, tackled him against the wall, and disarmed the taser. The second dropped the crowbar and screamed, "We have authority!" I slammed him into the floor. Not to hurt. To stop. They weren't armed beyond bluff, but their faces, pale, shocked, like they just realized they'd kicked in the wrong door. I zip-tied them with the cords from my backup generator. Called 911 again. Same dispatcher. Same station. Officer Hawthorne again. When he arrived, I showed him the door frame, cracked clean through. Showed him the crowbar. The footage. My daughter shaking in the corner. My hands were trembling too, but not with fear, with something deeper. He took a statement, slow and dismissive. Asked the trespassers a few questions. Then turned to me and said, "Well, technically this might be viewed as a civil matter. They were HOA compliance reps investigating a flagged safety issue. In my living room?" I barked. "They didn't knock. They broke in. I can log the incident," he offered weakly. "But unless they press charges against you for excessive force, I stopped. It hit me. The game. They weren't just bullies. They were baiting me. Cheryl and her thugs wanted a reaction. Wanted me to cross a line so they could say, 'See? Dangerous. Unhinged.' But they made a mistake. I don't snap. I calculate." And in that moment, something inside me went silent and cold. Hawthorne left without an arrest. The enforcers limped back to their SUV. I stood in the doorway, door frame still broken, and realized one thing with surgical certainty. The law wasn't going to save me. The system wasn't on my side. But that didn't mean I was powerless. No. It meant I had to stop playing defense. It meant the gloves were coming off. And Cheryl? She just kicked in the wrong damn house. The day after they broke into my home, I stopped calling the HOA. I stopped waiting for Officer Hawthorne to do anything but drink bad coffee and file nothing. I stopped playing by their rules. If they wanted to turn this into a siege, then I'd show them what it looked like when the wrong man got backed into a corner. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just got quiet, focused, tactical. First, the perimeter. I ripped out every old motion light and replaced them with commercial-grade flood sensors. 180-degree coverage. Infrared. Weatherproof. Cameras next. 8 in total. 4 dome cams under the eaves. 2 thermal motion cams facing the back gate and driveway. 1 inside the garage and 1 watching the front porch. I installed them myself, hardwired, encrypted, with a redundant local feed on a sealed server hidden inside a fake HVAC vent in the master closet. If they cut the power, I'd still have footage. If they pulled a Hawthorne and tried to accidentally delete it, they'd find out that I don't rely on systems I don't own. The gate got a reinforced magnetic lock. Pressure sensors lined the gravel walkway. Old school but deadly effective. Not alarms. Indicators. If they crossed the line, I'd know before their boot hit the next step. Then I took it inside. Every window sealed with vibration glass sensors. The side garage door got a steel deadbolt and an internal crossbar made from repurposed tractor frame. It wouldn't win awards for beauty. But functionally, It was an entry denial system built by someone who used to guard billionaires from kidnappers in Venezuela. I layered the house in quiet defenses. Steel reinforcements. A chalk grid inside the garage that would show boot tracks in case someone stepped in again without triggering a sensor. And I didn't just lock up. I posted notices. Laminated, legal, official, private property, no HOA authority recognized. Entry without warrant will be prosecuted. I made sure the wording matched state trespass law. Then I mailed copies to the HOA with delivery receipts. Cheryl responded the next day, not with a call, but with a fine. $500 for unauthorized perimeter structures. $175 for non-standard signage, and a threat of litigation for obstruction of community compliance patrols. I didn't respond directly. I let my new attorney do that. Her name was Lisa Tran, former federal prosecutor, now running a private litigation firm 2 counties over. We weren't friends. We were former colleagues on a protection detail in D.C. when she was assigned to a visiting U.S. attorney. I gave her the full download. Dates, times, videos, officer names, break-in footage. She asked for one thing only. Get me written affidavits. I'll handle the rest. So I started walking the neighborhood. One by one, clipboard in hand, camera on lapel, calm smile on my face. I knocked on 34 doors. 19 people signed. 8 told me they'd been fined for eye contact with HOA volunteers. One elderly couple had been cited 5 times in 2 weeks for their porch wind chimes, exceeding tranquility tone guidelines. Another single mother said she paid nearly $10 in late fees because Cheryl had forgotten to process her payment and refused to reverse it. People were afraid to speak out until I showed them the footage of 2 grown men storming into my home, uninvited, armed with a crowbar and a taser. That changed everything. Fear turned into outrage. Quiet neighbors started whispering across fences again. And behind closed doors, the HOA's little army started cracking. I got an anonymous note taped to my mailbox. They're not volunteers. They get paid. Ask about line item 49. That was all it said. But I looked it up. The HOA budget on file with the county. Line item 49. Neighborhood security consultation. $28,640. That's not volunteer pay. That's contractor money. My attorney filed a subpoena request the next morning. I started gathering proof like a soldier stacking ammunition. Every document, every recorded patrol, every fake citation. Then I baited the trap. On a Tuesday morning, I made a public post on the HOA's community forum. Not anonymous, not passive-aggressive. Just a simple statement. In light of recent events involving unauthorized entry into my home by unlicensed personnel presenting themselves as HOA patrol, I am requesting a formal vote be held on the dissolution of said enforcement group. Attached are videos and affidavits from fellow residents. Please review and decide accordingly. Respectfully, Mark. The post went live at 8:07 a.m. By 8:39 a.m., it was gone. Deleted by Cheryl. No explanation. By 9:00 a.m., I reposted it. At 9:14, gone again. This time with a site-wide message. HOA communications are not a platform for misinformation, harassment, or unsubstantiated accusations. I took a screenshot. Sent it to Lisa. She replied with a single word, perfect. That night the fines came again. 3 of them. 1 for reflective mailbox glare, 25. 1 for hostile body language at public meeting, 100. And 1 for attempted disruption of administrative process, 300. That last one made me laugh out loud. They were trying to paper cut me into submission, but they didn't realize something critical. I don't bend. I anchor. Cheryl started panicking when I filed a formal complaint with the state HOA Oversight Division, including all signatures, documents, and a flash drive with every bit of footage from the past 30 days. She sent a cease and desist order through a private law firm, probably a friend's nephew, citing defamation and reputational damage to the HOA. Lisa tore it apart in under 6 hours. Filed a countersuit with real legal teeth: harassment, invasion of privacy, false impersonation of law enforcement, and violation of multiple civil codes regarding unlicensed security work. The storm clouds gathered fast, but it wasn't enough for me to win in court. I needed the world to see what this HOA had become, so I built the last piece of the trap. I announced a neighborhood watch awareness meeting at my house. Public. Open to all residents. Thursday night at 7:00. I invited everyone. Even Cheryl. I posted it on the forum. Printed flyers. Let the word spread naturally. Cheryl went silent. The HOA cops didn't appear all week, but I knew they were watching. I made sure of it. Left my garage door open just enough to show the camera wires. Sat on the porch drinking coffee under my front security cam. Let them think I was relaxed. Then I spent every hour until Thursday reinforcing my home like a war bunker. The backyard motion lights were set to strobe with a silent alarm ping straight to my phone. I laid down a tripwire cord just inside the side fence. Harmless, but it would signal movement to the central feed. I had Lisa standing by on call. I had neighbors who'd agreed to film if anything happened. And I set up the living room with a second camera, one they wouldn't expect, facing the front door, recording continuously to a remote server, because I knew what Cheryl would do. I'd watched her pattern. Push, escalate. She wouldn't challenge me publicly. She'd try to sabotage me privately. They always do. I just needed them to try one more time, one more illegal step, one more swing of the crowbar. I wasn't just ready. I was counting on it. They came at 6:17 p.m., 23 minutes before the neighborhood watch meeting I'd publicly announced. Not under cover of darkness like real professionals would. No, the HOA patrol rolled in bold as brass. Like this was just another evening stroll to remind the peasants who ran their street. 2 men, same uniforms, same vests, same smug posture like they'd been issued authority in a cereal box. I was watching the camera feed from my office when they stepped onto my front porch without knocking. They didn't look around, didn't hesitate. They walked up like they had done this 100 times before, and this time, they didn't just trespass. They kicked the door clean off the hinges. It was violent, fast, and final. My daughter screamed from her bedroom upstairs. That was their mistake. The final one. Before they even stepped across the threshold, I hit the switch. A wireless trigger hidden beneath my desk. It didn't just start recording, it broadcasted. Across 3 encrypted channels, the feed went live to the county district attorney's inbox. Simultaneously uploaded to a private link I'd provided to the 3 most watched local news outlets. And streamed, unlisted, to a private group of former colleagues, ex-federal contractors, and legal analysts who'd been watching this build like a slow-motion IED. When the 2 goons made it to the living room, I was standing there, calm, still. Behind me, the second interior camera fed their every movement, date stamped, audio synced, and backed up twice per second to off-site servers in Colorado and Oregon. One of them shouted, "Down now!" like he was in a bootleg SWAT movie. The other aimed his flashlight straight at my face. "You are interfering with HOA enforcement. We're taking control of the premises." "I hope you brought a lawyer," I said. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just tilted my head toward the blinking red indicator light glowing in the corner of the room. It took them a moment. Then they saw it and panicked. The smirking one, same bastard who had stepped inside my garage weeks ago, turned toward the camera and actually raised his hand to block it. "Cut the feed," he muttered. "You don't get to edit this one," I said, stepping forward. "This time the audience is already watching." He froze. The taller one tried to reach for the power cable. Too late. Lisa, my attorney, had already activated the secondary ping. Her pre-recorded legal statement began playing across the feed. "This is Lisa Tran, representing the homeowner. This live footage is being submitted as real-time evidence of unlawful entry, impersonation of law enforcement, and civil conspiracy under Title 18 U.S. Code, Section 241. All viewers are advised that this footage has been time-coded and cannot be altered retroactively. Any attempt to interrupt this stream will constitute evidence tampering. The two men looked at each other, stuck. Then, finally, stupidly, they ran. But not before the entire world had watched them commit a felony in high definition. I didn't chase them. I didn't have to. I turned and walked to the porch, where neighbors were already gathering for the meeting, just in time to see the HOA truck peel out of my driveway like a getaway vehicle. Some were confused. Most were just stunned. I stepped up onto the porch and turned on the portable projector I had set on the table. The footage began to play again. Full volume. Slow motion breakdown. Door kick. Forced entry. Declaration of unlawful enforcement. That, I said to the crowd, is who Cheryl hired. Silence. Then murmurs. Then full-blown outrage. Someone shouted, "This is insane!" Another neighbor yelled, "They've been in my yard too!" I raised a hand and let it settle before I clicked to the next slide. A PDF copy of line item 49, Neighborhood Security Consultation, with payout records tied to Cheryl's personal account via a shell contractor listed under her sister-in-law's name. Then the next. A photo of Cheryl with Councilman Reese at a closed-door zoning meeting where she had funneled HOA votes in exchange for favorable district allocation. And finally, the last image. A screenshot of the fake badge used by the HOA patrol, traced back to a print shop in Idaho that had already been contacted by my legal team. I let the silence sit heavy. Then I stepped down, handed out sealed copies of the lawsuit Lisa had drafted. A formal complaint for civil harassment, false imprisonment, and unlawful use of private funds for purposes not authorized by HOA charters. Signed by over 40 homeowners. Ready to file. A slow clap started from the back. Then another. Within seconds, it wasn't applause. It was thunder. Not for me. For justice. Cheryl didn't show up to the meeting. She didn't even answer her phone that night. But her car was still in the driveway when the sheriff's department, not Officer Hawthorne, but the real sheriff's department, arrived at 9:48 p.m. with a warrant. They didn't knock. They didn't wait. The video footage had already circulated through media circuits like wildfire. And when the DA's office got hit with over 200 zero views on their private YouTube link in under 3 hours, the decision was swift. Cheryl was arrested for conspiracy, misuse of HOA funds, and impersonating government authority. Her house was cordoned off. Devices confiscated, bank accounts frozen. The mugshot hit the news at 11:03 p.m. Cheryl looked exactly how you'd expect someone to look after their entire empire fell in one day. Shocked, fragile, and no longer in control. Her patrol dismantled. Within 48 hours, the state HOA Regulatory Board filed an emergency injunction to dissolve the entire HOA citing gross misconduct and unlawful governance. Fines were frozen. All pending citations rescinded. And for the first time since this war began, my neighborhood wasn't afraid. A class action suit was launched by Lisa on behalf of 32 households, not just for the fines, but for emotional distress, unlawful entry, and property damage. The HOA's insurance provider dropped them within 72 hours. Every name listed in Cheryl's shadow board, the fake finance committee, the enforcement supervisors, the secretary that never attended meetings, all faced legal consequences. Cheryl's cousin, who had been writing the bogus citations, indicted for fraud. The two men who broke into my house, both were charged with trespassing and impersonation. One had a history of failed police academy attempts. The other was a former security guard who'd been fired for excessive enthusiasm. You can guess what that meant. I didn't press charges for the damage to the door. That's what restitution is for. I did send them a copy of the footage, with a thank you note. Smile for the camera next time. And me? I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, with my daughter beside me. She wasn't scared anymore. She smiled, like she finally understood what it meant to be safe, to be heard. Across the street, the HOA patrol SUV was being towed, tires flat, decals stripped, impounded for evidence. The neighborhood was quiet. No boots, no clipboards. Just birds, wind, and the kind of stillness you only feel when you finally win a war no one believed you were fighting. A reporter called that night, wanted a quote for the paper. I gave them 4 words. Some gates swing both ways. That headline made the front page, and the HOA, they never came back. Because when you send armed thugs into a bodyguard's house, you better be prepared for what's waiting on the other side of the door. Cheryl wasn't. And now she knows. Everyone does.